interesting. Who was the most interesting interaction you had? I know you talked about like you interviewed a lot of people. What was
Mhm.
like the most interesting one you had?
One of the coolest was Xzibit because it was in person. All the rest of them
Ooh,
were over the phone. So that was for the Out for Fame magazine. So me and the main owner of that went to like a hotel in Melbourne. He was touring. So we got to like sit in the conference room and he seemed like disinterested, like he's there for a press day. And he
yeah,
was just answering the same questions all day. Like he was chill. And I was a big fan of him when you know who I'm talking about?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you know him from Pimp My Ride or you know him from music?
I know him from music. He's on that Dr. Dre song.
Yeah.
Um,
Bitch Please. He was on them.
yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
So we were listening to him at like 95 when his first album. So it was a big deal for me. I was pretty stoked to sit in a room with him. So that was cool. Other ones we did that were pretty sweet. There was a tour in like I think it was 2003. It was called like Disturbance or something, and they had like the Luniz who did I Got Five on it. They had the Dog Pound. They had N9ne,
Yep.
probably some other people. So I got to be like the main journalist to interview all of them because I knew like so it was like some like local club DJ who was the promoter too. So I knew him. So then he put me on that. So then I got to speak to them all over the phone. But then we got to go like backstage at the show. So I got Corrupt
Mm,
from the Dog Pound to sign all of my album, like the Dre Chronic album and Snoop Doggy Style, everything that he was on. I got him to
yeah,
sign that, and that was pretty dope actually getting to. I mean, we idolize these guys, man. And in Australia, it's different than the States where nobody came out there because think how far
yeah,
it is. You got to bring a whole team and all of the equipment. It's like very
yep,
expensive. And the audience in Australia wasn't primed for that. So I felt like when the opportunity came to ever like hang with people, it was like
yeah,
sick. And we got to hang out with like the Loonies guys. Are you familiar with the I Got Five on It joint? You
yeah,
know the song?
yeah,
So,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
Yuck Mouth was like I was also a promoter at a club at the time, so, like, we'd get him into the club and tell them, "Hey, look, we got these guys coming," and he was just, like, cracking open cigars and rolling blunts in the middle of the dance floor, like, very illegal type shit, and just, like, there was these little piles of tobacco all around the fucking club
Oh
because he
my
was just, like,
god.
splitting them open. Like, it was just so funny. These guys were just, like, in their own world. It was fun, though. It was a good time.
That's interesting. How was
Wild.
Tech 9? Because he has one of the most loyal fan bases, and he's still going. I mean,
Still going. He was
he
so
puts
cool,
out
man.
music a lot, and like
Yep.
when I talk to fans of Tech 9, like they are in on him. Like they will defend him to the
Yeah.
grave. They love that man.
He's like it's like no, I was about to say cult, but I didn't mean it in a bad way. Like, he
No,
was
it kind
so
of is a cult
nice.
in a way.
I mean,
Yeah,
it kind of is, right? Like, there's I feel like he's like, if I'm not mistaken, he's gotta be one of the biggest, independent rappers if
yeah,
I'm like, maybe along like, Insane Clown Posse have the Juggalo thing, the meeting. So I
yeah,
feel like it's, like, less weird fans than that, but the same type of vibe.
yeah,
He was
yeah.
'Cause I was doing music, the producer I was working with at the time, he was cool. He let us come to his hotel room, and
Oh
we'd
wow.
playing him beats from my boy to try and get him to, work with him and stuff. But just, hey, come into the room, you think he's this, red-haired dude, super like, at the time, like, it's '03, so he must have been relatively famous, to tour Australia,
Yeah,
but, um, welcome, "Hey, you guys need a drink?" Like, just, like, super cool. It's just, like, maybe they're grateful as well to be that far from home and just be like, man, there's people on this the largest island on the other side of the world wanting to hear me. And I feel like now I haven't talked about or thought about this stuff in a long time. So this is super cool for me too, bro. The maybe it was his gratitude that is why he's so successful today. Like, he was just so humble and chill. And if
yeah,
he's continued to be like that, that could be why he's still thriving and just anything he puts out. Like you said, fans defend him and just love him and buy his stuff. It's
yeah.
cool.
No, that's an
Very dope.
interesting point that you bring up too, because I think in specifically in the rap culture, like you get a lot of arrogant personalities. And so
Unfortunately.
he's kind of for lack of a better term, like he's much different like than a lot of the rappers and their personalities, which is probably why he has such a cult following.
It's a great point. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised just seeing that and now reflecting on that. I'm like, yeah, that's probably it. So, man, more power to him, just being cool like that. And we were young too. Probably at the time I was your age. I think I was 22 in '03. So that was just like so dope being young hip hop fan growing up when nobody else really listened to it. I got a lot of shit for at school because no one else did, and people made fun of me and my brother, and I didn't really have many friends there who listened to rap music, and it was something that was important to us. So to actually come around, be around these people and like be able to write about it, talk about it, go backstage with them, and just it was very meaningful for me back then. It was very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, so it sounds like, I mean, you've had so many different hustles, really. I mean, like, I talked about your resume, but, like, also, like, as a music journalist, you were also creating your own music, correct? So, like,
Yes, sir.
was it like a direct kind of thing where you would meet these rappers or interview these rappers and be like, wow, like I gotta bring some of that inspiration, or did you see things like, wow, I need to bring that element into my own music?
For sure. Absolutely. It was just cool to see it up close because you listen to it, but you don't really think about the person behind it. So
Yeah,
then you get to meet these people in various forms of sometimes if it's just over the phone, it's a little harder to connect because you're not looking at them, but and like Corrupted was backstage, he was pretty lit. Um so like there are different whereas Tech 9 was just in his hotel. I can't remember when it was, and we're hanging out with Yuckmouth and Drew Down and stuff like that, so they were all in different ways, but just seeing them and getting to sort of at least some of their time was super like, all right, man, like we can do this, like this is cool. So it didn't literally, I don't know if it specifically led to anything. I don't think there was any opportunities for our music that came from that because we were like really fresh at the time as well. So if it was '03 doing a lot of these bigger interviews, I would have been like a year or two into like putting music out. So it wasn't probably a little too young to and just fresh in the game for that. But yeah, man, super cool just to see it up close because you don't, particularly at the time before social media, you didn't see
really get that.
people, you didn't get it, man. Everything was a mystery. You only got a little magazine article here and there. So to
Yeah,
be in their presence was like, oh wow. And it just was like you shook, like you just can't believe it. It's
yeah,
so crazy. Whereas I feel like now, I don't know, I haven't met anyone famous for a bit, but like I feel like you'd just be like, and see him on
yeah. No,
Instagram
that's a
stories
good
every
point.
day,
It's like,
you know?
I mean, with like all the different social media platforms now, like you see the behind the scenes all the time. Like you see the different processes, and I mean, there's so many documentaries out now too. Like you look at like,
It's a good
Genius. I
point.
mean that was a big
Yep.
one. That I thought that was a super
The
interesting and
best.
intriguing one. But like, it's definitely more available to people on like how this kind of stuff works versus
Yeah. And
like back in
mm.
2003.
You're right though about the Genius though. So this made me think that like all of the footage that you're seeing from Ye at the time was just dudes with handy cams because we didn't have a computer in our pocket. We
Yeah.
had phones, but they
Uh
didn't
huh.
have a camera. And they were just the push button. Like I had the Nokia joints, and people probably had Blackberries or whatever
Yeah.
at the time.
Yeah.
So it's like it didn't like you didn't just not everything was filmed because you didn't have that capability. So you just like you lived in
Yeah, it
the
was actually
moment.
hard. Yeah.
Yeah, so, like, I remember one of the coolest stories ever, ever, ever was not even to do with the journalism, but when I was the club promoter in December, it was December, today's December 6th, it was December 4th, 2001, because 'cause I'll never forget it. I walked in the club and Aaliyah is standing, this was, like, 8 months
Oh,
before she
wow.
died, standing on the stage dancing with some dude, which I found out later was her brother. I was like, "Oh my," and she was, like, always since I was, like, 13, because
Uh-huh.
her first album came out in '94, like,
Yeah.
the had the biggest crush on her forever. I'm like, "Oh my god," and I didn't have a pen because this is what you did. I went to the bar, I
Yeah.
was like, "Yo, can I get a pen?" He's like, "Yeah, sure, just bring her back." I'm like, "No worries." So I went up to her and, I kinda, like, just tapped her elbow. I was like, "Hey, can I get," and she just signed, I was, like, a DJ at the time, so, like, I guess I've always had hustle, so I had a business card, and she signed the back. I have it laminated just over there, but signed the back of the business card, and then a guy behind me was like, "Hey, can I use the pen?" I was like, "Yeah, sure," and I probably fucked up a night, make everyone sign stuff, but just, like, you walk in, I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that she's just standing there because she was filming that Queen of the Damned movie in Melbourne at the time. So sometimes you
That's
just stumble on amazing things, you know?
that's ridiculous. Yeah. No, I mean, like,
Crazy.
she's like a legend in
Was it
the
2000? Not
R&B
2001,
world.
it was 2000. Oh, for sure, man. She was huge. Like and I didn't even get to experience it. I was a child. Like, her first album came out when I was 13. So I didn't get to really, if I was like 25 or whatever when the album came out, you really got to see it and over here. But there I was like, me and my brother listening to it, and a couple friends type of thing. But it was just cool to see that type of thing in person, like, because I bet she could probably live a somewhat normal life, even though she was big at the time. It was you know, a really big celebrity wouldn't just be able to dance in a club. Like there's like an elevated stage, but anyone can go up there and dance. So like imagine that now, and like I don't know, if Kanye went to a club, he's getting mobbed. He can't just stand in a club and dance. So I think that was something kind of cool for them,
Yeah.
maybe because in the States she might not have been able to do that because she
Yeah.
was a movie star too at the time. So it's
No,
interesting. It's very
that's
interesting.
another interesting perspective because it's like like no celebrity with like social media, how everyone kind of knows everyone. Like you can't go anywhere. Like
Hell
it
no.
doesn't matter where you're going in the world now. Like people know you, especially if you're like in a I don't know. Like that's crazy. So
A reasonable size, yeah. Got a decent following, like, you're not gonna be able to have any sort of privacy unless it's, like, somewhere
no,
super, like, not connected, or
no.
that culture isn't prevalent at all, but any Western country or Europe or something like that, for sure, like, most of the celebrities that you and I would know would be not wouldn't really be able to do too much unless it's sort of, like, chauffeured in and all that, you know?
Yeah.
Wow.
Hmm.